and we will begin shortly. So welcome to today's session on managing anxiety. This session is curated by the Mind Collective, which is a community of mental health advocates and professionals that we are currently curating to be able to offer support and through programs such as these and through other community initiatives that we'll launch along the way to be able to offer mental health first aid to those in need and mental health support. So today's session, we are going to discuss dealing with anxiety in the times of COVID. And the panel today consists of Patricia Cavallo, who's a psychologist with experience working in the mental health space. She has worked in Nairobi at Chiromo Lane Medical Hospital. Today's panel, we also have Rita Auma, who is a mental health advocate. And she will further introduce herself when her time comes. She runs an initiative called, Rita, is it Safe to Spaces? You're muted.
It's called Heart to Heart Spaces.
Okay. Thanks. And then we also have Dr. Ben, who will join us briefly. He is unable to present fully as he is on the road traveling from upcountry, but he is here online with us and will be on hand to answer any medical related questions regarding anxiety. So as we jump right in, we will start with a guided meditation as we wait for more people to join. We're going to do a guided meditation that I believe will help us address any anxieties we may have entered the room today. While we don't have a meditation specialist on hand with us today in today's session, we will be using the Calm app, which I personally use. You can find it on your Google Play Store or your Apple Store to help you with meditation and breathing exercises. So I will start a breathing exercise shortly using that app today. And hopefully as the community grows and the platform grows, we will be able to identify someone that can join us and carry out some guided meditation sessions. So put yourself in, find a comfortable position to carry that would be great for you to carry out this meditation right now. So I will start that as we let more participants join.
Welcome to this 5-minute guided body scan. Start by sitting comfortably with a straight back and close your eyes. Rest your hands gently on your knees or cup them softly in your lap. Relax your neck and shoulders. And as you become still, bring your attention to the breath. The calming breath, the soothing breath, the breath that connects the mind and body. Notice how it draws into your body and as it leaves your body. And now we'll begin scanning the body. So bring your attention to your head, feeling into your scalp, forehead, and face. You might notice tingling or tension, throbbing or soft vibrations. And if you don't notice anything, don't worry. All that matters is you experience whatever is there. And now lower your focus to the neck, letting the throat and sides and back of the neck soften. And if you notice any tension, see if you can allow it to relax. Now bring your attention to the shoulders, noticing what's here. Whatever you observe is perfectly fine. Your arms and hands, observing any sensations that arise on the surface of the skin or deeper within. Inhale and exhale, softening this entire area. Now come to the chest and torso. Notice how the lungs expand and contract. Expand and contract. Drop your attention to your abdomen. Notice it filling up with air. And then on the exhale, slowly emptying. Now scan your back and experience whatever's there. There's no right or wrong, but if you notice any intensity, try directing the breath into those areas to help them soften. And then bring your attention to your pelvis and hips. Notice where you make contact with your chair. And scan your legs, circling your attention around your thighs, knees, shins, and calves. And all the way into your feet and your toes. Let it become soft. And now settle into the stillness that comes from paying attention to your body, part by part. And when you're ready, Wiggle your fingers and toes. Bring your attention back to the room and open your eyes. Enjoy this relaxed, peaceful state and take it with you into your day.
How are you guys feeling? Please share your what you're feeling in the chat section. Use the chat section. We will be sharing resources as we go along, and links to resources and several other documents as we go along in the chat function. Please feel free to use it. Share with us how you're feeling after this guided meditation as we dive into the next part of today's session, the next few parts of today's session. So I'll just introduce myself quickly. My name is Liz Kakoza. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a communications professional by day. And I'm the founder of the Tumaini Foundation, which is slowly transitioning to being called the Mind Lab. Basically, what we do is create spaces such as these to foster conversation around mental health and change the conversation around mental health. We are also working around improving access to healthcare for people living with mental health challenges. But our main goal is to create awareness around mental health. So we felt this conversation as the Mind Collective, we felt that this conversation was pertinent to have at this point in time, especially as we are dealing with a global pandemic. I'd like to call it a collective traumatic experience for us all, because this is something none of us have experienced in our lifetime. And yet we believe it is affecting us in more ways than one. I have personally dealt with anxiety during this period and continue to deal with it. And so many others I've interacted with are struggling with anxiety at this point in time. So we felt it important to have a conversation, to have dealing with anxiety as one of our first topics at this point in time. And just kick off this platform. We anticipate that we will host a session every Sunday on different topics. Please feel free to drop suggestions on the topics that you would like for us to discuss in the chat function, and we will put those into consideration on our in our plan over the next few weeks. So I would like to introduce to you Rita Auma, who is a part of the Mind Collective, and she will be sharing with us a story today about dealing and living with anxiety. So I will let her further introduce herself, what she does, and she will dive right into it. Thanks, guys.
Hi, Auma Rita. I'm the founder of Heart to Heart Spaces. We provide safe spaces for people to talk about their journey on mental health vis-a-vis illness. We do referrals for people who need to talk to a specialist or a therapist. Yeah, and we are also going to currently work on repealing.
Rita, you're muted.
Have you heard anything?
Just the beginning, but now you're back on.
Okay, what part of the beginning did I stop at?
Your
Let
name.
me start. Oh, really? Wow. My name is Auma Rita. I am a founder of Heart to Heart Spaces. We do a lot of advocacy, we do referrals, and yeah, we are also planning to work on repealing Article 120 of the Penal Code, which we find discriminatory towards people with mental illness. Yeah, I do interior design part-time because it helps me with my anxiety. And yeah, I guess that's me. So, story time. I'll start from 2019. In 2020, I was diagnosed with severe anxiety, PTSD, and OCD. So I have quite a spectrum. And I also have social anxiety. So I don't do well with humans. I prefer being in or being with my dog. Yeah, because I feel it's easier. I remember the first time I was diagnosed, I was in a space where I just started crying because I felt like, and I had symptoms like I would have panic attacks. So for most people, it would come off as me being dramatic about something. I would actually get sick. Like I would have symptoms of fever. My heartbeat would be off the roof. I would get asthma attacks. Yeah, and if I had to go out to spend time with people, I would have to I would have to plan for the conversations, and so I'd always ask coming, so I would rehearse what I'm going to say to each specific person. So if it got out of hand, or if I say the wrong thing, I'd leave the place because I'd get so overwhelmed, and then I'll feel like I have done something wrong. Then for the post-traumatic stress disorder, most people link it only to trauma got after sexual assault, but anybody can have it after experiencing a traumatic event. Yeah, so I've experienced a bit of those. And lastly, OCD. Yeah, I can't be in the cheap places. I remember I was at a friend's wedding and it was raining and it was muddy, and like the mud kept sticking on our shoes, and it was a really, really close friend. So I couldn't leave because I really, really love him and his wife. And I remember sticking till the end, and I just broke down and I started crying and I was wailing, and I couldn't drive, so I had to call my young brother to drive me and take me back home, and I couldn't stop crying like for 3 hours. For me, that mud sinking in my shoes was such a great trigger. Yeah, so on triggers, I believe triggers are messengers. That's the way I define them. So they come and go, and over time, I have had to learn ways on how to cope with all these. So I mostly stay away. I stay in my house a lot, and I am working on going out to be under the sun or around people. But I also have a lot of toys. I love toys. They take my mind off what's happening in that moment, like first aid toys, like this cute thing. I just do this all the time. I'm feeling anxious, like now. Or I do breathing exercises because those ones work everywhere. To do for myself is one, accept the diagnosis, but then secondly, work on getting better, because I just don't want to be defined by my illness. And yeah, it takes a lot from you. So I always respect people who are fighting and are keeping on. Yeah, recently I had to let go of my full-time job as a lawyer at Single Advocate because I could no longer keep up, especially in the COVID times. You know how before it was strictly like you go to work 8 to 5, but now your bosses are like in your inbox at 8 p.m. and your head is running wild because you plan to do something else at 8 p.m. and maybe it's not perfect and like for very introverted people, you're used to staying in, but now there are a lot of people in your space. And like, you're like, yo, okay, be intentional about certain things. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I give up. But when I give up, I give myself time to feel through everything because I realize that when I don't acknowledge, okay, this is anxiety, it's now here, I just keep supporting it to grow. Yeah, so that's my story with anxiety. I am currently seeing a doctor. I go for reviews every 2 weeks and story. I don't know. Yeah, over to you, Liz.
Thanks, Rita, for sharing your story. So you said you're using breathing exercises to cope during this time, right? And on top of medical interventions, right?
Pardon?
On top of, in addition to medical
intervention. Yeah.
Are they working?
Yeah,
since like the COVID period started, what has been like the journey since, like, for example, the beginning of COVID until now? Has there been a sudden peak during this season?
Yeah, I think there has been a peak because when the lockdown happened, I remember I was supposed to go for review and do my procedure. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I don't have a sticker. Okay, now I'm going to die. Okay, how am I going to get my medication? And then I called my therapist and she's like, they're closed down. That I couldn't go for my sessions because of the lockdown. So I had that peak of at that point. So I actually relapsed like 3 times during the COVID season. But also, one of the other things I found very hard was getting the medication because at some point I could not access, and it was really hard. And the fact that the routine that you have built to help you cope is crashing right before you, it just everything is going wrong. Yeah, so apart from that, I color, yeah, but there's been a peak, and also the number of people who need help, but you can't really help that well because now you're also going through something, and it's hard to explain to them because sometimes they have this thing of you're just rejecting them or you just don't want to help. So I've had to deal with all that and yeah, keep it together at the same time.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that part about, more people coming forward for support and not being able to help them, because most people think as advocates and people working in this space, we have it all figured out at this point in time, but we're struggling just like everyone else. And I know for a fact there has been a spike in mental health related disorders during this season, seeing more cases of anxiety related issues. There's been an increase in substance dependence during this season, and that's why we thought a platform such as this would be pertinent, would be important at this point in time. Thank you, Rita, for sharing your story. We're wishing you all the best. And of course, we're looking forward to continue working with you in the Mind Collective and continuing to put on events such as these virtually and eventually in person. Thank you so much, Rita. So next we will jump into Patricia Caballo's session, where she's going to take us through what anxiety is and the different dynamics around anxiety, how anxiety has escalated in this season. During her session, you can drop whatever questions or concerns that you have in the chat, and we will have Dr. Ben come in later to answer very specific medical related questions that you may have. Please use the chat function, and let's have Patricia join us. Patricia, please go ahead and introduce yourself as I pull up your slide.
Okay, great. Thank you, Liz. Hi, everybody, and I hope you're doing well. My name is Patricia Caballo. I am a psychologist currently working with the Mind Lab. I'd first of all like to thank Rita for sharing so intimately with all of us. It's a very brave thing to do, and I just commend you, and I'm just sending you so much love and light on your journey. As we start this conversation on anxiety during the times of COVID, I'd like us to just be mindful as I go through these slides. Be mindful of one another, be mindful of yourself, and just remember that it's okay not to be okay. We're all dealing with this pandemic very differently, so it's important that we should be compassionate. Okay, so Liz, I think I'm ready to start.
Sorry, just give me a second.
Okay.
There's so much going on this computer over here.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Wow. Where did that go? Okay. Oh no, that's not the one. Sorry, guys. Okay, got it. Can you see it?
Yes. Okay, great. So I'd just like to start with a brief introduction to mental health and just briefly go through about what mental health is and what it isn't. So according to the World Health Organization, this is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own potential, can cope with normal life stresses, work productively, fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to a community. Usually when we talk about mental health, most people will automatically jump to the conclusion that we're talking about a mental illness. Mental health is much, much more than just a mental illness. This is an everyday thing, and it is something that everyone will experience at some point in their lifetime. One in four of us, will experience a mental health difficulty in our lifetime. Again, this does not mean that 1 in 4 of us will develop a mental illness. This means we will experience a mental health challenge. Please, next slide.
Can you see that?
Okay, so what are some of the risk factors of mental health? Yes, yes, I can see that. Thank you. Dr. Benedict will share more about the science of mental health, but I'll quickly go through some of the factors. One of them is biochemistry. So basically, these are the differences in certain chemicals in the brain that make, I'm sure we've all heard of some chemicals such as dopamine, serotonin. So sometimes there's an imbalance in the brain that causes one to suffer a mental health challenge. Number two is genetics. Mental illnesses can run in families. There's a 70% chance that if one twin has depression, the other twin will have some sort of mental health. Again, this does not mean that it's 100% that if one person has a mental illness, someone in their family most definitely will. No, that possibility. Number three is personality. So people who have low self-esteem, who are easily overwhelmed by, to be more likely to experience depression. And lastly, environmental factors. Continuous exposure to violence, neglect, abuse, or poverty at some point in someone's life may make them more vulnerable to depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is a normal and healthy reaction. It describes the physical, mental, and behavior changes that allow one to deal with a threat or danger. Threats can cause a series of changes to occur automatically in the body. Once the brain becomes aware of the danger, hormones are then released. The involuntary nervous system sends signals to various parts of the body to prepare for flight or the fight or flight response. What do we mean when we talk about anxiety, and what do we mean when we're talking about an anxiety disorder? So, like I just mentioned, anxiety is a normal and healthy reaction. So, when does it become a disorder? I'll explain in the next slide. So, some of the signs and symptoms of anxiety. Number one, your mind becomes more alert. When the body becomes aware of a certain danger or a threat, your mind becomes more alert and you're ready basically to protect yourself, all right? Your heart increases and your blood pressure rises. In extreme cases, you may experience heart palpitations. You may also experience some sweating, and this is usually to help cool the body. Blood is also diverted to your muscles, and your muscles may either become very, very tense or very, very weak, depending. And Dr. Benedict will explain more on this. There's also a production of saliva that decreases, and that causes a dry mouth. There's fear and apprehension. There can be trembling and shaking of the limbs, or restlessness. You may find that in a very tense situation, you're pacing around and walking around, you're very restless, you're unable to calm down. One may also experience cold and clammy hands. And also hot flushes and chills are also some of the symptoms to look out for. Feeling sick or nauseous or feeling like you may vomit or throw up is also one of the symptoms. Again, these are symptoms to look out for anxiety in general. However, how do we distinguish between anxiety, which is a normal reaction, and an anxiety disorder? So an anxiety is triggered by a specific stressor. So usually an individual will be able to pinpoint the stressor. Whereas in an anxiety disorder, this situation may come out of it. It may feel like it has come out of nowhere. Someone suffering from an anxiety disorder also has an intense and disproportionate emotional response. So it's very hard to understand where the stressor has come from and what exactly it is and how to deal with it. Also, someone experiencing an anxiety disorder has these symptoms for weeks and even months or maybe even years at a time. And this interferes with the day-to-day life. So it interferes with functionality. I'll give an example of someone suffering from an anxiety disorder that may wake up in the morning and has the irrational fear of maybe getting into a car crash. As much as that is something that may be possible, this is a fear that they have every single day. This can greatly affect the way they go about their day. One, they may not be able to leave the house, or if they do leave the house, they'll be extremely tense and on edge. Another symptom of someone suffering from an anxiety disorder are symptoms such as sweating, trembling, lightheadedness, and a racing heart. And anxiety is a response to toxic situations, and relaxing often makes you feel better. However, someone suffering with an anxiety disorder may feel like it's impossible to control or manage the situation that they're going through. And because of time, I can't go through every single one, but if you have any questions, please just drop them in the comment section and I'll answer them at the end of this session. So COVID-19 is an infectious disease, as we may all know, and people contract the virus, experience mild to moderate illness, respiratory illness, and the cure for the virus is unknown at the moment. So at the moment in Uganda, we have a total number of 1,434 cases, and as per today, 13 deaths. COVID-19 has brought about a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of fear the world over. So I'd like to go through what COVID-19 has contributed to when it comes to anxiety. So we have the fear and anxiety of this new disease that we do not understand. I know many of you may be on WhatsApp groups, and over the past few months, there seems to be a new conspiracy theory every other day about the origin of COVID-19 and the way it spread and the way it can be treated. So there seems to be a lot of ambiguity and we're not really sure what we're dealing with. But then one thing is for sure, it has caused a lot of unsettled feelings within us. We're fearful about this new disease. Although now we have a little bit more information, it's still not conclusive. There still is no cure. So we still live in that fear. We also may have developed a fear for our loved ones, especially the elderly and their health. And especially if you're not with them, if they're in another country and due to lockdown, you're unable to see them or them to travel back home. That's also another fear that can cause anxiety to get worse. We've heard of people being fired from their jobs or salaries being cut, and the entire financial situation the world over is very worrying. So someone may have a fear of either losing their job or a salary cut, or just a worry about something going wrong in their financial situation. Fear of a chronic illness worsening. Earlier on in the lockdown was first enforced, there was a fear of having someone who's really ill not being able to get into a hospital. We heard of cases of pregnant women losing their lives because they weren't able to get to a hospital on time. So fears such as just not being able to access health facilities in time, and also the fear of mental health challenges getting worse due to all the stress and the worry. And these are just a few of the some of the fears that come along with COVID-19 and often worsen anxiety. And please feel free to share some more and we'll go through them. I'd like to share some tips to manage your anxiety. First, I would also like to say that it is very important to have a mental health professional give you the diagnosis of anxiety. I know it's very easy to get onto Google and type in a few symptoms and say, oh, this is what I'm feeling. But quite often we'll then self-medicate and we may not be aware of maybe some other underlying issues that a mental health professional would have been able to pick up. So I'd like you all, if anyone who's listening to this, before you try out any of these tips, well, they're pretty all-round tips, but then if you'd like to get a better understanding of where you're at in your mental health, please do see a mental health professional. So some of the tips to manage anxiety: eat a well-balanced diet, get enough sleep, use some deep breathing techniques. I heard Rita sharing with us earlier about deep breathing. It really does help to calm someone down. Ask for help. If you're unable to see a mental health professional, please talk to a friend, a loved one, a family member, someone who'll be able to point you in the right direction during these times. It's not a must to watch the news every day if you feel triggered by the news. It's not a must to be on social media all the time looking for updates on the situation. Just take some time away from your phone, from TVs, from laptops, and get some me time and relax. Do some exercise. What this will do is it will boost your mood. It will get your blood flowing, and it will generally help you feel better. So lastly, what can you do for someone that you feel is going through a tough time during this COVID-19 pandemic, or for yourself? Number one, reduce the stigma and create awareness. It's especially and forwarding those WhatsApp messages that you also don't understand, because for someone else this may mean having a panic attack or not having a panic attack. So just be mindful of the messages you're sending and make sure that the information is correct. And also when it comes to mental health, just create awareness and reduce stigma by reaching out to those who you may feel need your help. Number two, seek professional medical attention. This is especially important just to get a proper diagnosis and to start your treatment plan properly. Reach out to a friend or family. I mentioned this earlier. Get enough quality sleep. So this means at least 7 to 8 hours, and away from TV, away from your laptop, away from your phone, at least an hour, hour and a half before bedtime. Reduce or regulate watching or listening to the news. I mentioned this earlier. If you feel like you still want to be up to date with the news, ask a loved one to update you on what's important without you having to watch the news every day. Eat a healthy diet, exercise, run, walk, try and keep active, dance or do yoga if you like also. Avoid alcohol and drugs, and keep a journal this helps you to monitor better idea of triggers as you go along. Spend time doing things that you enjoy. If you enjoy playing games, exercising, if you're a sporty person, do that. If you like, try and do things that you enjoy. Spend time with people that you enjoy being around. Follow up with therapy, especially for those in isolation. If you know someone who has been quarantined, someone who's still in quarantine, as they get reintegrated into society, please reach out to them, ensure that they're getting the therapy, the help that they need to be riches. Yes. I think that's it for me. Thank you so much. If you'd like to engage more with us, please take that number and we're happy to help you find help if that's what you're looking for, or basically just share with you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Patricia, for taking the time to take us through your presentation on anxiety. I'm sure many of us have learned a lot. Most people don't, appreciate many times the science behind, mental health disorders, and will only relegate them and or categorize them as, emotional problems or things like that. But the work that we aim to do around creating awareness, we want to get people to understand that there's science, there are biological elements behind several of these mental health disorders. Do we have any questions for Dr. Ben? I don't know if Dr. Ben can jump in briefly to give us some more medical perspective on anxiety. Dr. Ben, are you available?
Thank you very much. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you, Patricia, for the presentation. Patricia has pretty much covered wow. It's just a few things that anxiety disorder is of things of mental disorders. Attacks where a person is out of the blue, the heart is beating faster, they are breathless, they have a feeling of impending doom. The generalized anxiety where you pretty much can't put a finger around what it is bothering you or what you're worried about. And there's illness anxiety disorder where a person is worried of having people have gone convinced they have something. To situation anxiety, you've had those is unable to like go in front of people and speak, or performance anxiety. Yeah, so all of them are such a broad group of disorders that tend to share the pathophysiology or the chemistry explained to deal with the fear, fight or flight reaction and the chemicals. Yeah, that's pretty much about it. It's an intersection of three aspects, which is the genetics or the chemicals in the body, the social aspect, whatever is happening in the environment, and the psychological aspect, like the schema. Whatever experience tends to mold how you view the world and things around you. Like she's talked about during this period, the COVID-19, this is something new, and it has caused disequilibrium in everyone's life. With jobs. On top of that, its mode of transmission requires you to be away. Let yourself, you have to distance, you have to put on a mask, and so on and so forth. And this is a new normal, things we are not really used to. So it definitely, not until a few weeks ago, people started dying, but the COVID here hasn't, the mortality rate is not as bad as it's been in other countries, and we thank God. Severe, because imagine the children who are no longer going to school, people who have lost their jobs, so on and so forth. So we need to bring and how to live with it, how to take care of our mental health, especially during this period. And like Patricia, please don't suffer alone. Reach out. We are available to help you through this, basically. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben is working closely with the Mind Lab. He's working with the Mind Lab and on several initiatives to offer support, access to mental health care for those in need. He is a psychiatrist at Butabika Hospital, Zambia Hospital, and KIU, KIU, if I'm not mistaken, yes. He's a great psychiatrist, and if you need to reach out to him to see a psychiatrist or referral, he is able to offer support. So right now we'll jump into our Q&A session. If you have any questions, please flag me via the chat if you would like to turn on your video and ask a question or share, or you can type your question in the chat function. I will just go back briefly. Someone had asked a question regarding how to identify your triggers. I think that was from you, Oscar. Is that a question you want to go on and ask or elaborate? Please let us know. Oscar, please turn on your mic.
Also, yeah, my question is around identifying your to individual. I mean, everyone has would have their own triggers, and so how best can you identify these triggers to anxiety happening?
I will let Patricia answer that question.
Okay, thank you, Oscar, for your question. When it comes to triggers, like you mentioned, everyone suffers differently. So everyone's, you may have like similar triggers, but most times they're individual triggers that only you can experience. So like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, journaling is one of the ways to identify your triggers. If you journal each day, you'll be able to look back on the day and say, at such and such a point, I was feeling low, or I interacted with someone that made me feel anxious, or a certain situation made me feel anxious, and so on and so forth. So just writing down these triggers will just help you to pinpoint at what point they happen. But for you to be able to do this, you have to be especially truthful to yourself. You have to be honest. Anxiety can cause negative thoughts, but you need to be able to be patient with yourself and actually acknowledge those thoughts. And through acknowledging those thoughts, if you're seeing a therapist, you'll be able to explore different things and what they may mean, and if they have a connection to the past. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Patricia. Just a little on journaling and my experience with journaling. I like to use apps because I believe technology came to make our lives easier. There's an app I'm currently using called Dailyo, which tracks your moods throughout the day and helps you reflect on your day. But one of the things I like to ask myself when I go into deeply journaling and recalling or reliving my experience of that day, I try and look for my the pain points from that day and break them down. I like to say, just like you would when you're writing an essay or something for work or school, and ask yourself questions around that feeling. It might be a feeling of anxiety, a point of anxiety, or a point for you, a point of pain for you in your life. Just going on to slowly break it down the way you would write an essay, and kind of like explain each micro feeling as you journal it, and justify it, and try to think back to when that feeling started, or what brought it on, or when was the first time you remember feeling like that, and things like that. That has helped me personally with my journaling. I don't necessarily just rewrite or my whole day as such, but I try and look for the pain points from that day, and the things that made me feel uncomfortable or unhappy or whatever. Any more questions, or anyone willing to share more on how they deal with anxiety, cope with anxiety, their experiences with journaling, their experience of it? Hi, Melissa. Thank you for
hi everyone. Thank you. I'll put on my video for a minute. Thank you so much for organizing this. It's really, really helpful, and it's good to see like different people joining in. I just have one question, and for me, it's personally based on my experience. And Patricia, I found your presentation very, very useful and informative. It's basically, I think, what goes through everyone's mind. You know how there's a stigma. I experienced depression and anxiety in 2013. Mine was triggered by my parents getting sick. So, you get the cancer diagnosis and you're like, okay. And they got it at the same time, both my mom and dad. So at that point, I was just like, shut down. But I guess the question, I was able to pick myself up 2 years later. It took me a while. It was a journey. But, I went on to live my life, do a master's, have a baby, and sort of pick up the pieces and keep moving. So my question, which to Patricia and Dr. Ben, and maybe Liz as well, or anybody else, is, can you really ever heal from this sort of mental health? Is it like any wound? You fall down, you hurt yourself. Can you truly heal from depression? Or is it more sort of a lifetime stream? You survive and you learn coping and sort of, because I currently don't have any anxiety. But there are moods, like sometimes you can get low and can feel a lot, and then maybe I'll pray and go exercise or something. But I just needed to hear from you guys and what your thoughts are on sort of the healing process. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. Dr. Ben, and then Patricia.
Thank you for the question. Can you heal from mental illness? Yes. And can actually recover fully for some mental disorders, definitely. I have had a couple of clients who have actually discharged after they recovered from depression, from anxiety disorders, so on and so forth. Yes, you. That is why when we're treating, we have a combination of the biological, which is the medication we put you on, and the psychosocial, where you have therapy sessions and we look around the environment. For example, if there's a trigger in the environment that probably caused this depression, if you've lost a job or something's happening back at home, we can find a way to fix it, and in one or the other, you will recover from the illness.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Patricia?
Okay. Thank you, Melissa, for your question, and thank you, Dr. Benedict, for answering. Just to add on to what Dr. Benedict has shared, you can, like he said, you can recover, bearing in mind that there will be triggers or certain things in life that may remind you of a past trauma or something. So you have to be well aware of those triggers. You also have to do your part in eating healthy. Like you mentioned, exercise, and then you will feel better. So generally, it's a journey, and everyone, all the individuals have to play their part, just like Dr. Benedict mentioned. The doctors who give you your medication, your therapist who does the psychosocial support, your support, your friends as well. So as long as you are, you have insight of the problem and you know what to do and you have the right support, you should be able to soldier on. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the responses. I believe I'm actually a healer. I'm sorry, I've recovered, but I asked that question only because I once had a therapist who used the, and maybe I should share for this group, we used the analogy of, where everybody is like the people who get sick, mental health problems, it's like they think about it like a car and shock absorbers. Some people have, soft, like less shock absorbers to life. So it's really how, it's like a process, and I feel like that's, you just, like you said, you have to just be aware of the triggers that would push you back into that state, to protect your mind. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Melissa, for your question and for sharing. I like that analogy about, shock absorbers. I like to say healing is not linear, So some people, our processes or our journey of healing can never be the same. But I believe, the start to your journey of healing starts with, the beginning starts with, awareness of your issue, and, being aware and alert that you have an issue, and then, going out to seek the help that you need. Thank you again, Melissa. Any more questions? Someone shared, Sagara shared, exercise is a really big help. Yes, it is a big help indeed. Some new questions. Rita, how do you go back to the main video? I'm stuck on chats. I don't know what computer you're using, but just close the chat. You should be able to go back to the video. Any more questions or any more shares? Patricia, we had discussed earlier about discussing, the different triggers, or the triggers that discussing, like your own triggers or your own experience dealing with anxiety. Is that something you're willing to share with us? Just a little bit as we wait for some more questions.
Okay, sure. I'll share a little bit about anxiety, and maybe we can also do a segment. I've just thought about this now, a segment on anxiety in children, because mine is from when I was much younger, and I wasn't able to express myself fully until maybe my teen years. But as a child, we moved around a lot, and just being in new environments and making new friends and being in new schools really took its toll on me. And what I know now to be panic attacks, but no one really knew what was going on. I got a diagnosis of asthma, which was wrong, and the medication only, and my parents decided to take me off all the medication I was on for asthma. And but to be honest, at that time I was now back in, maybe it's something psychological. Maybe the child is under a lot of stress. So for me, it was eye-opening to learn it on my own, to now connect the dots and understand what was actually happening to me. And yeah, that's my short story. Just to cut it short, I didn't really have the support, mainly because no one knew what was going on. No one understood it. I didn't understand it because I didn't really know what was happening. And being young, I guess, people just thought, oh, they're sick, they're sick. So just like adults have anxiety issues and challenge and mental about it, or they don't know how to express themselves. So that's my short little.
Thank you for sharing, Patricia. It's amazing that you're working in the mental health space, as a psychologist, but you can relate. You can relate with some of the struggles of your patients, and look back on your life, and you're able to identify that you dealt with something like that. And when we were talking last week, asthma is a common diagnosis, because personally, when I went through my anxiety episodes recently, one of the most one of the symptoms that stood out for me the most was my inability to breathe, or feeling like I couldn't breathe, and that shortness of breath, which is a common symptom of anxiety. Thanks for sharing. Nina would like to share. Nina, could you turn your mic on? Nina Mago.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing all that you have. My name is Nina Mago, and I'm the founder of the Purple Bench Initiative. So my story is very what Patricia said. My anxiety was diagnosed when I was much younger, or I saw the signs and was later diagnosed, because when I was younger, I had epilepsy. In fact, that's when it all started. So my anxiety was triggered by the stigma that I was experiencing, and the stress from actually living with a condition that was so stigmatized. So I think I'm in agreement with Patricia that we should talk about anxiety at some point in children, because there's so much that we don't get to understand. And when we grow up much later, then we start to put the pieces together. But unfortunately, not everyone has, that ability to put those pieces together. And so they keep going through life kind of lost, if I should use the word. So yeah, mine was from the point of view of having epilepsy. And I think maybe at some point if we could also have a discussion around epilepsy and other, not other, but epilepsy as well as mental health disorders. Because from what I've gotten to learn, once you have a condition such as epilepsy, it's highly likely that you'll have issues of depression or anxiety. So I think that's one of the things that I would like us to discuss at some point. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you for sharing. And that's something we'll definitely discuss. We are going to reach out to you and see how we can partner on one of these Sundays to do an episode with you and the Purple Bench Initiative. I absolutely agree. There's so many, other, even epilepsy and other diseases that trigger, certain mental health conditions that could be avoided. And Patricia could tell us more. She is doing a master's in child psychology. Many of these issues start when we are young, because personally, I've known Patricia since we were 4 years old. And, she, many times as we're doing our work or discussing mental health, she's been able to take me back to our childhood from the things, she remembers or she experienced or she witnessed with me. And we're now, because of her, we're able to connect the dots, about my mental health, her mental health, yeah. So thank you, Nina, for sharing. We'll definitely be in touch. Any more questions? Or any more shares? A little about, childhood anxiety and childhood mental health disorders. My personal journey living, with mental health challenges started in my early teens. And in my childhood, I remember one of the things that I dealt with early on was severe stomach pain. But being able to connect the dots as I got older, I came to the realization that many of those episodes of severe stomach pain were actually anxieties. Anxiety also has the ability to make your stomach hurt really bad. But of course, because of the lack of awareness and the lack of knowledge, I didn't know that. My parents didn't know that for very many years. So I struggled with that. Sagala has a question. Yes, Sagzi, please turn your mic on. Can we also attribute that a lot of anxiety can be caused by societal pressures and the need to fit in? Patricia, would you like to take that question? Can we attribute that a lot of anxiety can be caused by societal pressures and the need to fit in?
Thank you for your question, Sagala. Most definitely. Sorry, I'm just reading your question. Attribute a lot of anxiety. Quite often, we feel the need to keep up appearances. We've heard of things like peer pressure growing up. So quite often we're not allowed to be ourselves, and especially when it's something to do with your mental health. Because of the stigma, you're not going to be able to share openly. You're going to feel like you're being judged. You're going to feel like society won't understand you. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. You can't be yourself because of peer pressures and all of that, and you're trying to keep up appearances, but even that is stressing you out even more and affecting your mental health. So I would say that one of the ways that you can combat that is to be true to yourself. As long as you feel like you're not harming anyone, you're not harming yourself, you just want to be yourself, and you're not a harm to anyone around you, try and be more, I don't know how to put this, more authentically you, because at the end of the day, you come first. You are your home, so you have to take care of you. Yes, it's great. Many people have support systems. Many people have friends, But then you don't also want it to get to that point. You want to be able to take care of yourself from the beginning. So slowly, I know it's not easy, but slowly pull away from people that pressurize you, societal norms and values. And this is especially difficult because of culture. I mean, these are things that have been passed down for generations. So how do you break apart from it? But if you'd like to have more conversations about that, I'm happy to. I just feel like I won't be able to cover everything during this session, if that's okay.
Okay, I'm seeing another comment here from Zerida. Same, I've also struggled with anxiety-related stomach issues all my life, only realized it as an adult. Dr. Ben, could you shed some more light on this? I think it's very common among people dealing with anxiety to suffer from, something stomach-related. How does this work, or what brings on that pain in the stomach?
Usually, symptom disorders. So what happens?
Dr. Ben, we can't hear you.
Deal with a stressor psychologically. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yes, so your brain is unable to deal with the different stressors that are happening. So what it does is, as a sign of crying out for help, you present with physical symptoms. Sometimes you find body pains, especially the abdomen. Sometimes you find muscle weaknesses, headaches, and so on and so forth. So sometimes, because you are unable to deal with the situation, the body will present with physical symptoms. More times than not, you may be going through something, but you haven't really conceptualized it, and you don't know you are struggling psychologically, but then your body decides to actually present with physical symptoms in respect to that. So yes, abdominal pains are one of the commonest symptoms of somatic symptom disorders. And I think more times, more often, because we don't seem to understand mental health. You'll go to your doctor, they'll run all these tests. It's not until they fail to figure out what it is that they'll say, oh my goodness, I think let's call in a psychiatrist or mental health expert, and we figure out what it is. Just because we don't understand mental health. So
Thank you for your insight, Dr. Ben. We lost you there at the end, but thank you for shedding some light on that. Rita would like to share on her coping mechanisms for the stomach pain. Yes, Rita.
Hi guys. Sorry in case you hear a lot of noise. I'm on the move, but because of my diagnosis is that most times I get what they call the conversion disorder, what the doctor was talking about, and it greatly affected my stomach. So I love to research and find out things, and I started to watch things about how the gut and the brain are somehow connected. So I took the next step to get a nutritionist for how to draw a plan for
very
me.
connected. I hope I made
to draw a plan for me that could work for me. And yeah, I got a plan. But then I also take something called kombucha. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's very good. And Kifa has also really been helpful. But then I also know when to go to hospital. Like I think I spent Wednesday, Tuesday and Monday in hospital because the symptoms had skyrocketed and they needed to be put in check. But then it's just the little things. If going out to be in the sun, watching what you eat, do you have vegetables on your plate? What are fruits? Less carbs. For me, that works for me because I was very intentional about it, and because I believe that you should use whatever weapon you can in order to keep going and keep fighting. Yeah. So I can share uh, my plan after this. I'll share it with Liz, and you can see a nutritionist to draw for you one. Yeah, and I can recommend some, but it's helpful when you're eating right, when you're trying to do something with your body. And yeah, okay, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Rita, for sharing that. Thank you, Dr. Ben. We got the most of the we got the gist of your answer. Yeah. True to what Rita has shared, I know I find a lot of watching my stomach health really helps with managing, the stomach pain and the discomfort that comes with anxiety. I know one of the things that I've had to be very intentional about. You mentioned carbs, but also trying to reduce like on carbonated drinks and stuff like that, because sometimes, you can mistake anxiety for bloating for, there's just, you need to be quite mindful of what's going into your body and how that's affecting you. Yes, Patricia.
I'm sorry, I was trying to read the questions. Sorry.
The last one from Rita. My baby sister is shy, but she fights with both anxiety and depression, and she wants to know the way forward to telling your parents about it. Most of her friends are having issues with that. Patricia, are you there?
Yes. Let me just go back to the question. I couldn't hear you for a second. Okay. Is it the question from Rita?
Yes.
Okay, Rita, thank you for your question. First of all, I think because you know a little bit about mental health, I'm happy that maybe you would be able, if you're comfortable, of course, if you'll be able to talk to her about it so that she at least doesn't feel alone. When it comes to talking to parents about mental illnesses, especially in African setting, some parents don't fully understand mental health. So it's important to sensitize them, to help them to understand better. Just like Dr. Benedict shared earlier, usually when you go in to see a doctor, they'll go through all the tests, and when they can't figure it out, they'll then say, oh, maybe you need to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But Rita, if you do know a medical professional or a mental health professional who you feel is in a better position to have that conversation with your parents on behalf of your sister, I don't know, you can advise on that.
It's her friends' parents.
Sorry, I read her.
Her friends' parents.
Oh, it's not your baby sister.
Yeah. My parents know and are very supportive, but
Okay.
often have parents have friends who deal with it, and the parents
Okay.
sharing.
Okay. Yeah. Sharing with them. Okay. Now, sorry about that. The question read your baby sister. Would you know of a mental health professional who you've dealt with that could talk to her friend's parents? Usually,
Yes.
it'd be easier to bridge the gap that way.
Yes, I do, but most times, even when that's in place, the parents are not willing to talk about it at all, or they're not willing to accept that a child is actually going through this. So you just hit a brick wall.
I understand. I understand it can be very difficult, but are her friends able to get the help that they need?
No.
Not without their
Because of
parents'
that,
support.
yeah.
Okay, and you've tried it before with
Yeah.
your okay. Well, I'd like to have a conversation with them and see how we can go around it. If
Okay.
don't hesitate to pass on our number, and then we can sit down and get a better picture of everything. Is that okay?
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita, for your question. Thank you for Patricia for offering to help Rita and her sister's friends. I know this is a common question about, breaking through to parents and family for support around mental health. And that is why we do the work that we do in the spaces that we're in. That is why we do this work around mental health, from the Mind Lab to the Mind Collective, and all our other initiatives that are in the works. This is why we do this work, for people to be able to start receiving the support that they need. We are 5 minutes past time. We plan to finish at 6:30. I'd like to thank you all so much for joining us today for Couch Sundays. Please share with your family, with your friends about this space. I hope I hope today's session has been beneficial to you all. I hope you've learned something new about mental health, not just for yourself, but for the other people in your spaces, where you are, your family, your workmates, your friends. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next Sunday. We will share next week's topic on our socials in the coming week. Please join Patricia and I tomorrow for Mindful Mondays on Instagram Live. Patricia, what will we be discussing tomorrow?
We'll be discussing ego defense mechanisms.
Yes, so please join us for that. It's very informal, fun IG live chat. And we look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Thank you for joining us again. We will share this video on our YouTube channel, on our new YouTube channel. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.